this is the history of hot air balloons. Woo! Alright, so in 1783, the Montgolfier brothers sent a sheep, a duck, and a chicken on a 20-minute flight over Paris in a hot air balloon. But they didn't use propane. Instead, they used burning straw, manure, and other material in an attached fire pit. Fast forward 300 years later, and Ed Yost and his Raven Industries built upon this original design as they developed hot air balloons for the United States Navy's Office of Naval Research. And all they did was they added a propane burner system, new envelope material, and a new inflation system, and many important safety features to the original hot air balloon design. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the history of hot air balloons.
Now moving on to the components of the hot air balloon. To keep the balloon rising, you need the air to be reheated. To do so, hot air balloons have a burner positioned under its open balloon envelope. The propane is stored in a compressed liquid form in lightweight cylinders that's positioned in the balloon basket. The compression of the propane allows it to flow quickly through the hoses to the heating coil. The propane then flows out in liquid form and is ignited by a pilot light. Nylon works well in balloons because it is lightweight and is sturdy and has a high melting temperature. The nylon at the base of the envelope, known as a skirt, is coated with a special fire-resistant material to keep the balloon from catching fire. Eventually, the air becomes so thin that the buoyant force is too weak to lift the balloon, so there is an upper altitude limit. The buoyant force is equal to the weight of the air displaced by the balloon, so a larger balloon envelope will generally have a higher upper altitude limit than a smaller balloon, and that is how the structure of the air balloon works.
So this is the piloting of a balloon. Piloting a balloon requires a lot of skill, but the actual controls are pretty simple. The pilot can increase the vertical speed by increasing the size of the flame and heating the air inside the balloon more rapidly. The vertical parachute at the top of the envelope is controlled by a Kevlar cord that runs from the valve at the top of the balloon down to the basket. Essentially, these are the only controls of the balloon: heat to make the balloon rise, and venting the air inside the balloon to make it sink. They get the balloon from place to place, or maneuvering it horizontally by changing the vertical position. Because wind blows in different directions at different altitudes, a pilot ascends and descends to appropriate levels and flows with the wind to move in a particular direction. As such, wind speed generally increases as you get higher in the atmosphere, changing altitudes, helping pilots control horizontal speed and movement of the balloon.
What then generates the lift of a balloon so that it floats in the air? Flight by hot air balloon is actually made possible by a force called the buoyant force. This is actually the same force that is applied when you try to push a ball underwater. It operates by the Archimedes principle, which says that any body or object making contact with a body of water will experience an upward force equal to the weight of the density of the water that lies above it. Since balls are mostly air and air is always less dense than water, the ball floats to the top. Similarly, an object's buoyancy is proportionally related to the object's weight and the weight of the water above it. This same principle applies in the air just as it does in the water. Since hot air is less dense than cool air, as the ignition warms a column of air through the center of the balloon, the much denser, cooler air creates a force pushing the less dense heat upward, thereby generating lift and allowing flight.
This is how you can make your own mini flyable hot air balloon with candles. First, you need a suitable plastic bag. Any plastic bag that is super thin, cheap, and flimsy should work. Then make a circle with straws. You can do this by inserting the end of one straw into the other, and so on. Then, tape the opening of the plastic bag to the circle of straws with some tape. Cut a 2-inch square of thin cardboard. Cut 4 holes in the center for the candles. Attach a 12-inch piece of thread to each corner of the cardboard square. Insert candles into the holes you cut. Connect the candle holder to the plastic bag with threads from the candle holder so that it hangs down below the balloon. Lastly, light it and let it float.
I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way.